Hello you glorious gamers, I'm ChadOfStats. Today we're diving into 8 modern turn-based JRPGs. These are games I would recommend you at least try, if you are like me and love turn-based games. Firstly, this list is not for tactical turn-based games. Basically, games where you can maneuver your character on a large map or grid. So, no triangle strategy or XCOM. That's for another video. I am talking about turn-based games where large-scale movement is not a central mechanic. And when I say modern, I mean games released in the last 5 years. That's a decent enough time frame, right? Before we start, I just want to say that this list is in random order. Number 1 on this list might not necessarily be better than number 8. All the games deserve some consideration, but I definitely don't want the trouble of ranking them. No one would be happy then. Most of all, me. Now let us dive into turn-based glory. Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition. Did I specify the Definitive Edition just so I could meet the time frame and include this game in the list? Why yes. Yes, I did. Dragon Quest XI is old school comfort food with modern quality of life features and a nice coat of paint. And I mean this in the best way possible. All the while being available on basically every console, as well as PC. Honestly, when this game came out, I blasted through the whole thing. Day after day, it consumed me and I loved every minute of it. You play as the Luminary, basically this Trunks looking guy that wields a sword. Also, you are the chosen one. Honestly, it starts off very stereotypical, but it is just so charming and heartfelt that I enjoyed the ride. And there are twists and turns that kept it interesting. I was heavily invested by the end of it. It is a long game that can easily take you over 60 hours to finish. Actually, most of the games on this list are like that. Did I mention that if 3D games are not your thing, you can play through this entire game in a 2D pixel sprite mode, because that is a feature the Definitive Edition added. And for those that like more challenge to your playthrough, you can customize the difficulty of the game with the draconian settings, buffing enemies or limiting yourself in certain ways. Getting obliterated by enemies because of your own choices? Glorious. Unfortunately, there is no job class system in this game, but there is a grid-based skill tree system, so that's good enough. The Persona series, Persona 5 Royal and Persona 3 Reload. So this is a bit different. 1 or 2 entries in this list are multiple games from a series. But since there is more than one game that fits the criteria of the list from the same series, I am lumping them together. Persona 5 Royal is available on PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, the Xbox Series, and PC, while Persona 3 Reload is also on all those systems except the Nintendo Switch. Both Persona 5 Royal and Persona 3 Reload are turn-based games, with a heavy focus on social sim mechanics throughout. Talk to people, hang out, and make friends. Other than embracing the grind and leveling, you literally get stronger by socializing and making friends. Persona is interestingly enough a spin-off series of Atlus's Shin Megami Tensei games, which have a similar combat system but lacks the social elements. Both the Persona games tackle different themes throughout the story, and it is enthralling throughout. Persona 3 Reload definitely has darker themes than 5, visible even in the way you summon your persona, although 5's persona summoning is also concerning. It's cool though. So that gives it points. Persona 5 Royal is a definitive edition of Persona 5. Persona 3 Reload is a remake, taking some inspiration from 5 along the way, including the very stylish UI designs. Monster Hunter Stories 2. A spin-off of the Monster Hunter series, available only on the Nintendo Switch and PC. A game where you engage the series' infamous monsters in turn-based battles. But you are not alone. You fight alongside monsters that you tame, and there are a lot of monsters to catch in this game. I'm not sure about the ethics of sneaking into a monster's den and stealing their eggs, but hey, it is Monster Hunter. You are literally wearing the armor of your partner monster's species. Morbid. But enough of that, it actually has a lovely art style and engaging combat. And before anyone asks, yes, you can ride around on every recruitable monster. The story is a step up from most Monster Hunter games, in that there is actually a proper storyline, and it is pretty decent overall. Nothing mind-blowing, but serviceable. A bit too many callbacks to Stories 1 for my taste though. Might be confusing for you if you don't know the game's plot and characters. While the turn-based battles are quite deep, they also follow a rock, paper, scissors formula, along with various weapons and weapon types. There is actually quite a lot going on, and it would take way too long to describe it all in this video. I will say that battles can be quite lengthy. They are definitely not a short affair. Two more things before we move on. This game features multiplayer, both PvP and PvE, which is actually pretty grand. Fighting your friends or teaming up to raid eggs can be a blast. Lastly, this game got some pretty decent post-launch support, adding many monsters to it. Shin Megami Tensei 5. Released on the Nintendo Switch only, this is the mainline series that Persona spawned off from. As such, it features many similarities. A semi-similar combat system, the names for moves are all the same, as well as using the same creature designs. Make no mistake, however, while Persona is its own thing, Shin Megami Tensei is also its own separate beast, and known to have a high difficulty level, but you can set it to your own preference in this game. The story for SMT5 centers around a post-apocalypse setting, where characters with differing ideologies compete in how to move the world forward. All in all, it is a great game with an amazing soundtrack and gameplay. I just want to mention that this game features less dungeons than the previous entries and more of an area-based semi-open world instead, where exploration is rewarded. The story could have used some work, however. While the lore is very interesting, the execution of the plot is less than perfect. Fortunately, Atlus is releasing a definitive edition for this game, called Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, set to release this year across all platforms on the 21st of June. This version is said to release with a brand new storyline route, as well as many improvements across the board. Updated combat, new demons, and areas are just some of them. I do wonder if they will add content or change aspects of the old story route, however. That would be nice. Octopath Traveler 2. Gorgeous sprite work, a stunning HD 2D art style. Job classes. Can you not see why this game made the list? Octopath Traveler 2 is a game about 8 travelers that each have their own story, grouping up together in order to accomplish their goals, where each character's story adds a strand to the net that is the overall plot. It has fun and satisfying combat that can prove a real challenge. The soundtrack is amazing, all the while looking more dynamic in combat than the first title in the series. There are actually many improvements in the sequel. The 8 playable characters are more interesting, the game looks even more stunning, there is more interactions between party members, and the overall plot seems to weave together better. Not to say that Octopath Traveler 1 was bad at all, it is just that this sequel improves on that greatness. And no, you do not have to play the first game at all to understand this one. It is almost completely separate. Now, back to the most important aspect of this game, the job classes. Each character has their own job class with unlockable support skills and abilities. However, you can also give each character a secondary job, allowing for a nice level of customization. Going a step further, you can slot a certain number of support skills, basically passive abilities, you have unlocked, even if you don't have that skill's job equipped. Perhaps most importantly, I must mention the characters' little outfits. They change to reflect their secondary job in battle. It is adorable. The Like a Dragon series, Yakuza, Like a Dragon, and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Okay, this may be a bit confusing. The Yakuza series used to be a beat-em-up style game, before changing to a turn-based gameplay style with the 7th entry, titled Yakuza Like a Dragon, essentially Yakuza 7. And for the next entry in the series, they did away with the Yakuza title and just called it Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, basically the 8th entry. Both games are excellent. For convenience sake, I'm gonna call Yakuza Like a Dragon 7 and Yakuza Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth 8. 7 is a soft reboot of the franchise, as it is not just moving on from beat-em-up combat to turn-based, but also moving on from the old protagonist. A new man with a new story is here. That does not mean there are not a ton of references and callbacks to past titles. It is a lot, but still fairly accessible for the newcomer. 8, on the other hand, is not a game I would suggest starting with. Not only does it bring back the previous protagonist as a dual main character, but you also need context from 7 to at least begin to understand this entry. So at the very least, I would recommend playing 7 before 8. I am not sure why they made the previous protagonist so important in 8. Don't get me wrong, I love the guy, but it does not make it easy for newcomers to the series. These entries are crime drama games that often shift into absurdity, featuring middle-aged men constantly ripping their shirt off before beating each other down. It is brilliant. So, despite the difficulty getting into the series, I would highly recommend it. 8 also makes many improvements to 7's gameplay. Did I mention that both games have job class systems? They are all gloriously absurd. Bravely Default 2. The third game in the series, despite being titled the second. This one I'm a bit mixed on. I greatly enjoyed the previous entries in the series, and I did so with this one as well. But the story did not really captivate me. It felt rushed in some places, and many things were just unexplained. I know the series is supposed to have heavily meta storylines, but still, the soundtrack is like most games on this list. Excellent, while the gameplay is engaging and very difficult. With its brave and default system and deep job class customization, it can be a real challenge. If you don't find a way to break this game over your knee, it will break you instead. Seriously, you are encouraged to find broken strategies and builds to defeat specific bosses. It released on just the Nintendo Switch and PC. And if you know anything about the publisher, Square Enix, you may be able to guess what I'm about to say. That is right, majority of the plot revolves around crystals. Why is it always crystals with them? Besides that, this game can have some stunning environments, especially the towns. I am less enthused on the character models themselves. One Piece Odyssey. Ah yes, One Piece. It is near and dear to my heart. While I have not caught up in the anime yet, I am thoroughly enjoying myself. And a turn-based game in that world, almost irresistible. I am quite fond of games that adapt an anime into a turn-based system. I really don't think there are enough of them. Now, while this game takes place quite far into the show, it does cover a lot of the story leading up to it by revisiting the prior arcs. I won't say how, but the fact it happens is not really a spoiler since the trailers show it as a thing. I would not recommend it as a way to experience the story of One Piece for the first time though. Now, let me be upfront. I am not that far in this game at all. I just really love turn-based games and One Piece. So far, I am enjoying myself, and I can't really offer much in the way of story criticism, not having finished it. But I will say that the attack animations are dynamic and lovely, while they did a great job of translating the manga and anime to a 3D environment, the character models especially. So why is One Piece Odyssey on this list? Well, I would still recommend it, especially if you are a fan or familiar with One Piece. And considering you're here watching a list of turn-based games, you probably like turn-based also. Although it is maybe not the best entry if you are not a One Piece fan. What with the whole game taking place over 700 episodes in the story. With that, the list is finished. 8 modern turn-based games I would recommend. Or maybe 10 depending how you look at it. I really do enjoy a good turn-based game, and I hope you do too. And with this list, I have proven that I am not completely obsessed with job class systems, as more than half the games here don't even have them. Now, please feel free to let me know what you think of the games on this list, as well as any games you would add to it. If you are still here and found this video helpful, entertaining, or just good to watch, please consider liking and subscribing. It would really help me out. Thank you for watching.